Welcome to Destination Marriage, a podcast about successfully navigating the winding roads of marriage. Whether you're wanting to get married, newlyweds, or have been married for years, we want to share with you how we have navigated those winding roads over the past 20 years in our marriage.
Join us on this journey as we talk about real-life experiences in marriage and what we have learned along the way. We discuss love, travel, kids, friendships, and much more, all from the perspective of our lives together. Happiness, love, grace, passion are things we all strive for in marriage, and we invite you to take this journey with us.
Welcome to Destination Marriage. Welcome to episode 49 of Destination Marriage. I'm Jackie.
And I'm Tommy.
And we're thrilled you have joined us on this journey today.
Indeed. We are so excited to be back.
Yes.
It's been a minute.
We took September off to just kind of focus on, back to school.
Yeah.
Now that kids are actually back at school.
It's so nice to have him going to school 5 days a week and getting into a routine.
We all got into a routine. I mean, honestly.
Yeah, chaos the last 2 years.
Yeah, it has been. But, it's like we thrive on routine, and we needed a few weeks because now it's like getting up earlier. And, of course, you have extracurriculars, and we have things going on with work. So we just had to take a few weeks to kind of get everything in order, right?
Yeah. So like I said, we're really excited to be back. We've been, really kind of thinking through a lot of our topics that we want to talk about. And, it has been kind of a, it's like October already. It's crazy. What happened to September?
I know.
It flew by.
It has been kind of a constant on the go since our 20th anniversary, which is, with our last episode that we had put out. We're on the go constantly throughout September, but we're excited to be back. And trust me, we've missed it over the last few weeks, but there wasn't a moment, even though we had everything kind of in line.
Yeah. And what's, we talked about it on our last episode, how we've been on our trip. We actually were like, kind of brainstorming of what other topics we want to do. And we had all these, a bunch of episodes lined up we're really excited about. And then the episode that we're doing today actually
wasn't even on that list.
Was not on the list. And so what we want to talk about today, and the title of the episode is The Apology You Didn't Know You Needed.
Yeah.
So babe, why don't you kind of give some background and tell your story?
Yeah. So as you guys know, especially now that you've listened to our new intro, we've been married for 20 years. And obviously within that time, we have exchanged apologies, maybe a few, right? Multiple apologies, maybe on a daily or weekly basis. I don't know. Maybe
because I'm pretty much screwing up all the time. So it's me apologizing to you, to everybody all the time.
If you want to be married for 20 years, prepare to apologize within time.
And laugh and show grace. Yes,
exactly. But the apology you didn't know you needed is very different. And I really wanted to talk about this because it's very fresh and it's something that we have experienced within that window of time that we're gone in September. But it's a recognition and an act of accountability for something that was done in the past. It may have been pushed back into the files of your heart or your mind, but more than likely it's collected some dust over the years. And like I said, this is something that's probably happened in the past. So that's why I say it's the apology you didn't know you ever needed. So with time, feelings may change or hurts can heal. But in this case, honestly, without a recognition or an apology, it can potentially create an obstacle within the marriage.
Or the obstacle was there and we just kind of got used to it, maybe. Right?
Yeah.
Or just kind of learn to go around it or whatever.
Work around the
go
obstacle.
Over it, whatever.
It doesn't mean it's not there anymore.
Right,
but yeah.
Right.
So in the early years of our marriage, and we've shared before, we were married very, very young. I made the mistake of placing an unrealistic expectation on Tommy. And honestly, I hadn't even given this thought or even recognized it until recently. And I mean, as recent as, 2 weeks ago, within the last 2 weeks. This is very fresh, okay? That's why I was not on the list. This is very fresh. So I had placed a pressure on him as my husband that he could and would make certain things happen because he was my husband. Not in a bratty, like, oh, this is what I want, stomping my feet, tantrum mentality, but I did have a level of dependency and an expectation that honestly was unfair and probably unhealthy, to really place on Tommy and also in our marriage. And, I had to realize and had a light bulb moment. Obviously, I've outgrown that many years ago, but I didn't realize till recently, oh my gosh, I had done that. And not only did it probably create that obstacle that we're talking about, but what is he, or what had he been feeling? What had you been feeling internally, mentally or emotionally? What scar was there, as a result of that? So I realized, obviously, he's my husband, right? He's not a genie.
Mm-hmm. I wish. not, no pun intended.
I don't know. Maybe I don't know where I even got the idea, though. I mean, coming into the marriage at that age, I don't really know where the seed was planted. But the reality was, yes, I had this unrealistic expectation that, my husband, maybe I watched too many Disney films. I don't know. I had this idea that it was like, you just would make things happen, or you had that power, or I don't know. It's an unrealistic idea.
More like an idea, right? Like you said, an idea.
An idea.
There wasn't 10 things specifically you were thinking. It's more just, right? It's not like I expected him to do A, B, C, D, and E. It was just, like you said, an idea of what a husband should do all the time, every husband.
Not only that, I guess it was also kind of like I felt like there were no limits there to what you could make happen. Again, that's unrealistic.
I'm very limited.
I mean, it's unrealistic. It really, really is. Yeah. And I also, like I said, I was very, more so than now, would you say, more dependent on you? Obviously we depend on each other as husband and wife.
Yeah. Like using it more as like a negative type of word in that sense, right? Because I think we're more dependent on each other now
in a different way,
but it's because we're closer and we know each other. Like we're more dependent on each other.
Yeah.
And then when we're really old, we're gonna be like ridiculously dependent on each other. But in that sense, we're more dependent on each other in a positive way because we have grown in our intimacy, in our trust, in our respect for each other's opinions. So we're more dependent on that. Like you come to me, I come to you, for that's our first line before anything else.
Right.
Yeah.
But I guess it was just an unrealistic expectation. But it really did cause a lot of frustration, disagreements. And, I don't know, obviously at that time, such a long time ago, what your immediate emotional response was internally. Just obviously outwardly what you had expressed or how we got frustrated, and maybe just you would go in your corner and I would go in mine. And then I know I would just feel very frustrated on my end. But again, I was still in the wrong. And, like I said, we were young. My preconceived notions were off in this area. Not an excuse at all. This is not an excuse. I'm just saying what that time looked like for us.
You're just stating the facts.
Right.
Right.
And so I don't know. I felt it really strongly on my heart, completely out of the blue. It just rose to the surface, and I remember that, and I immediately felt like, wow, that's something I need to apologize for. I was in the wrong, 100%. And this is, I don't know, 17, 18 years ago, but it was fresh in my mind. Boom, it just hit me, and nothing triggered it. No one had said anything. It just immediately came to mind, and I recognized I need to apologize.
Then you apologize for all the stuff you just talked about, right? And this is why the title of the episode is so important, because it hit me like a ton of bricks. Like a weight was lifted off my shoulders. Remember I told you, it's like, yeah, that's something I've been holding on to for years.
But did you know you were holding on to it until
not that night? If we would have talked about it, maybe. But to be honest, if we would have just brought it up as a general discussion, I would have kept the defensive wall up, because it was something that I had sort of said, well, that's unresolved, but I'm not going to keep fighting about it. And it happened so long ago, right? In general. So once we started talking about it, and it was just a really, it was a calm conversation. It wasn't emotional at the time as far as it being some sort of argument, like I said, right? It wasn't like there was an incident that had happened that was fresh.
Right. And you didn't ask for the apology either.
And that's why I love the title, because I didn't even know I needed that apology at this point. And I'll just kind of show why it impacted me so much was because, when you talked about that dependency, that we'd get into arguments about things, right? You would have an expectation of me that I felt was unfair and I couldn't meet. And so it was like, I kind of felt like I was right in the sense that like that's unfair expectation, but I'm your husband. I want to do things for you. I want to like meet your needs, but I didn't think it was a need that I could meet, and it was unfair. So it was like this sort of like welling up of frustration, not wanting to hurt you or not wanting to fight.
Yeah.
But also, how do I resolve this in my own head as a young husband? And the answer was not well. The answer was, I'd go off in a huff, or it just, sometimes, I don't know. I don't even remember a lot of times, but I remember the feeling, right? Like I think we even talked about that. It's like, I don't even know I don't even know the scenario.
Yeah,
like how many, I don't even know. That's what we said. It's like, but man, when you brought it up, it was acute in my head, the feeling of that frustration that I would feel.
Yeah.
And so I think for me, if I look back on it, again, the feeling in that sort of, I can't believe I'm using this word again, but like triggering that feeling of that emotion. I really hate that word, but it's like, there's no other word to use. It does it. So what I think has been unfortunate, because it was unresolved for me, I didn't know how to sort of maturely kind of approach it with you maybe, was there's probably been a number of times where we've had a disagreement where I've maybe jumped to that position in my head.
Yeah.
That this is an unfair expectation, when in reality it was probably a lot of times it was a fair expectation of your husband. Whatever scenario. Again, I don't even know
I don't
examples,
know either.
right?
It's such a long time ago,
But
but
see
I know
my
that
point?
I did.
So I would go to like a defensive position and then use that defensive position as like justification for not, or what's the word? Like self-analyzing what your concern was.
Yeah.
Now,
Like
I'm talking about years later, right?
Yeah.
Like self-reflecting and saying, am I chickening out? Am I, wussing out on doing my job as your husband?
Yeah.
Whereas I would justify it based on some years ago feelings that I had. So it literally felt like a weight off my shoulders when you came and apologized to me.
Well, I don't know. I just immediately, and I don't even know what actually brought it to the surface. I was probably doing something like I would do on any other evening or morning. It
wasn't even like a Monday night or something.
No,
it was some crazy.
It was
like
a random work day, and I probably was just doing, stuff like you said. It was at the end of the day. Throughout the day, you're working, you're doing house chores. I was probably doing something along the lines of folding a towel. I don't even know, but it came to mind, and I felt very strongly that I needed to come to you because, honestly, I didn't even know if you were holding on to that. I had no idea, and you never asked for the apology. It's not as though you were, just beating a dead horse and coming to me and constantly saying, hey, I really expect an apology here. And that's why, when we were chatting about it, I thought this is really important because whether or not it's the exact same scenario for someone else, it can be something else. It doesn't have to be what I did in terms of putting an unrealistic expectation. But like we said earlier, when you're married, there's going to be tons of times you apologize, but there may be things that we're overlooking in each other. That could be maybe a fresh wound that can turn into a deep wound, that can create an obstacle. And I wanted to recognize that and apologize for that because obviously we've grown in our marriage and I've matured. I didn't think, back then I didn't recognize it. I didn't see myself as in the wrong. But yeah, as part of that self-reflection, looking back, it was unhealthy and it wasn't fair to put that expectation on you, whatever that expectation was. Again, I don't remember the specifics around the expectation, but I know that I was doing that. And, so I didn't even know what your response would be. Quite honestly, I didn't know. And I didn't know if you would say like, what are you talking about? Or yes, I didn't know that would be your response. So, and
it was kind of crazy how quickly I respond, like how quickly it all came back. And I started the feelings again, not scenarios. Oh yeah, I remember 1990, whatever, you said this to me, and or it wasn't even that. But we talk a lot about on a bunch of our episodes where we talk about how as part of our marriage growth is me and you both trying to, as a general rule or general kind of way of thinking, is try to seek to understand why you might be saying something or why you might be doing something or why I might be doing something versus just reacting to what's going on, right? Because we all bring stuff into marriages. our entire lives, our perspective, you know, it's different, you know, so you got to, as part of a marriage, you've got to figure out a lot of stuff together.
Yeah.
But I think it's been really powerful in our marriage as far as our intimacy and our closeness, and a lot less arguing when at least for me, I take a step back and say, well, why is she asking that? Or why is she saying that? And then I realize a lot of times, you know, that I'm wrong and you're right, because I better understand why you feel a certain way versus just responding to the whatever. Right. And I think that goes with any relationship, with anybody, you know, like with coworkers, with your kids, with your parents, with anybody, with friends. Like, why are they saying that? And not in a, you know, it's, I downloaded this book, I forget what it's called, right? And I've been telling you about it and I keep referencing it.
Oh yeah. Was it a book?
It's an Oprah, and then there's a psychologist that she works with a lot, or a psychiatrist. And I think the book's called like, What Happened to You, right? Which could sound a little aggressive, but you know, it's
well,
even
you
worse.
say it sarcastically.
Right. What happened to you? But what do we normally say in an argument when somebody says something kind of out of it's like really odd or like aggressive or angry or kind of weird? You say, what's wrong with you? Right. And now you just label that person. And the whole purpose of the book is to kind of talk through, like, you know, our experiences shape our reality and what we say and what we do. So it's important to understand you know, for you, for me, like, what's our experience? What's our perspective of why those things are being said or certain actions are being taken? So, okay, why do I say all that? Because had it been 15 years ago and you were coming at me with something, right? Whatever, or I was coming at you, I think we'd handle it much differently now, because, you know, if 15 years ago we had the same mindset, we'd maybe better understand our pasts, our perspectives, why I say certain things and why you say certain things. And we would have probably nipped it in the bud a long time ago, right?
Yeah.
Just because of a maturity thing.
Right. A lot of it's maturity, but, and for me personally, I'm not going to try to speak for you in this sense, but for me, it's also, like you said, this could also be outside of a marriage, right?
Sure.
It doesn't even have to be just between husband and wife, but obviously, you know, that's what the situation is for the two of us, but it's a lot of self-awareness, and, you know, that may come with maturity. Who knows? Maybe you're 21 right now and you're very self-aware and you're able to pick up on, wait a second, I was in the wrong and I should not have behaved this way, or how I expressed myself could have really offended that person, hurt that person. But a lot of it also in the growth of a marriage is also realizing it's not all about me. So like in that, in my, whatever, not, I don't want to say demand, or in my expectation at that moment, I wasn't thinking, what kind of pressure am I putting on Tommy? Is this realistic? How would this make him feel if he can't meet the expectation? All of those questions, those things that when you're not thinking, or you're thinking outside of yourself, did not cross my mind.
Sure.
Because I hadn't matured at that level. I hadn't grown in that selfless type of love like a wife should have for her husband, you know,
and vice versa.
And that took time. But also I did, like you mentioned, everyone comes into a relationship or a marriage with some type of preconceived notions or expectations based on how they were raised, or, you know, the path that they took years prior to meeting. You know, you don't know. There's so many things that you can come into. It doesn't necessarily mean it's baggage, but it's just kind of your blueprint. And sometimes you need to, you know, go through with a big eraser and erase some things that really just are unrealistic, or not really going to favor, you know, the growth in your marriage. You're not going to feed your marriage, you're only going to take away from. So I'm glad I had, you know, grown out of placing that expectation, but I'm grateful that you were also open to receiving my apology, because a lot of times if something like that can fester for many, many years, which I didn't know it was, you know, obviously something that
but it wasn't festering, right? Because it was not like a bitterness about it. Because bitterness is sort of, there's almost like an activeness to bitterness, right? Like you're because I wasn't thinking about it.
But
now maybe
if it was a weight in any way, you know, something that you inadvertently,
but it was weight I didn't even know I needed to be lifted off my shoulders at this point. That's why I love the title of this episode, because let me tell you sort of what it meant to me. And this is nothing, you know, I said this that night, right? But also tell our listeners like what it meant to me And it was a weight off my shoulders, and it really, and I told you this, that it like is one of those moments where I felt closer to you. Mm-hmm. Like felt it, you know, and we weren't even like, you were on the couch, I was on the chair, but I could physically feel it in my soul.
Mm-hmm. That's really, you know, something that I feel like is extremely, I'm appreciative for, because like I was going to say, like not everyone is in a place to receive, you know, like you maybe didn't want, you know, I think in certain situations, not everyone's in a position where they can receive the apology. So I appreciate, and you were also very raw and open with me and telling me immediately how that made you feel, and that it immediately lifted that weight off of your shoulders. So I'm grateful that we had that moment, and, you know, that I recognized it. I'm sorry that it took that long, but I am grateful, you know, that I recognized it, and that weight or that obstacle now no longer exists, you know?
So it just kind of got us thinking, you know, that's our story, right? And so it got us thinking like, gosh, like how many of us have things that we don't even realize, you know, we need an apology, or that's still there. It's still kind of, you know, certainly we all have things that we know are still bothering us. Right. And that's a whole different topic, but the reverse, I think, is more about what this, episode's about, is doing that self-reflection and looking back and saying, gosh, what are things that I've done in the past that, you know, aren't necessarily, you know, it's not like things that are very poignant or acute. Like I know I hurt somebody. Like that's something that, you know, right? Or something that you did to somebody, or something, you know, that somebody did to you, you know, but things like kind of search that, gosh, what were expectations, or what were things that I've done in the past or treated people a certain way, where, you know, some maturity and self-reflection is needed in order to recognize that. And then, you know, if possible, make amends, you know, and it may not be in a marriage, you know, but obviously we're talking about a marriage context, but it could be something with a former coworker or former, you know, friend, or a current friend, or whoever. Right. And so, man, you don't even realize, like, maybe it's a weight on your, like maybe there's something I did that is a weight on my shoulders that I didn't realize I needed to apologize for, that would take a weight off of my shoulders, your shoulders, whoever's shoulders that you hurt, you know?
Right.
And so we would encourage you to do that and kind of self-reflect on your own marriage. And I think it's easier to kind of talk about it in a marriage context because there's so much day-to-day interaction with your spouse, right? And so like it could be something that was a long-standing way of thinking or of action that just kind of became normalized, and it's not right. Yeah. You know? And it could have, you know, the type of impact it had on me, it could have on you, you know, listener. Right.
Yeah, that's why I say, you know, it can apply to so many different relationships within your life. For us, obviously, it's within a marriage. And, you know, when we were chatting about just the list of, you know, that we had put together of what we wanted to put out for this month, this was not on that list, but it happened within the last couple of weeks, and we felt really strongly, you know, kind of after the conversation a couple of days later, you know, we obviously can't be the only ones that have experienced that situation. It may not be an identical, you know, you're not putting that expectation. It could be something else. But, you know, if there's something on your heart, I would encourage anyone who is feeling that way, that if that does cross your mind and you're thinking, I may have created a wound here, or an obstacle, or some type of distance or hurt with someone else, whether it's your spouse, a family member, a friend, I would encourage you to not wait much longer and just immediately respond and bring healing to the situation, or at least recognize what you did. You know, you can't, obviously, I'm appreciative for your response.
Yeah, you can't control what...
You can't control how they will respond.
You can only control what you do, right,
but
right.
That is the right thing to do, and I'm grateful that, you know...
And it's hard, baby.
I had that light bulb moment. I'm sorry it took so long, but, you know...
No, it's hard to do that. You know, it's hard to say it's hard to proactively apologize for something that you don't know how that person's going to react to. You know, it's a very mature thing to do. And like I said, that night, it made me fall deeper in love with you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, baby. Well, on that note, we are thrilled to be back this month, you guys. And like I said, obviously we already have tons of episodes already planned for the remainder of the month, but we really wanted to share this, something that was heavy on our hearts. And I'm glad you were open to sharing this as well, because it was a very raw moment for us to share, but we hope it's something that will bless you guys and hopefully be of value in whether your marriage or any other relationship. So
thank you, baby.
I love you.
I love you too. So
yeah,
next week's episode, going to kind of lighten the mood a little bit we got holidays coming up here. It's October. I don't really consider Halloween a holiday, but it's an event. Mm-hmm. But Thanksgiving, Christmas, there's all sorts of family traditions. So we're going to talk about how do you kind of blend effectively different family cultures and traditions in a marriage.
Interesting.
Should be a fun topic.
Sounds great. I'm excited for next week and hope you guys enjoy this episode. We hope you enjoyed this episode of Destination Marriage. We would be grateful if you would subscribe, download, and give us a positive review of Destination Marriage on whichever platform you're listening. Continuing to interact with our listeners is very important to us. Message us on Instagram, Facebook, or via email at feedback@destinationmarriagepodcast.com. Be sure to tune in next week.